Hey everyone! Welcome to a very special episode of the Uno Amalgam series. Episode 6, the one where Luke adds Uno Ultimate to the Uno Amalgam. That's right, I only have one goal today, and that's to add the 51st edition, Uno Ultimate. But as you'll see in a moment, this is no easy feat. Uno Ultimate is by far the most complex version of Uno I've encountered in the wild. And you guys seem to know of its complexity, considering every comment I get recommending it is always accompanied by a good luck. I figured I could display how powerful I am by adding this version right now. I figure if I'm actually able to implement this thing, then I should have no problem with any other version of Uno ever. However, as you'll soon see, it's not only the mechanics of this game that make it complex for this project. Before we get into that though, let's do this silly clarification time thing. Let's talk about cheating. It seems a few of you are concerned that the amalgam will be, quote, too easy to cheat. This kinda baffled me for a second because I really didn't know what to make of the statement. To help explain my now fully formed thoughts on the topic, let's talk about cheating in tabletop gaming. In my opinion, there are two types of cheaters. Those who know that they are cheating, and those who don't know that they are cheating. I don't even think the latter of these should even be considered cheaters. For all they know, they're doing everything right, and this type of cheating can be eliminated completely by playing a warm-up game, or fully explaining the rules, or refamiliarizing yourself with the rules if you're the one that's uncertain. Not that complicated, so that part is basically solved. On the other side, we have people who know that they are cheating. Why do they cheat if they know that it's wrong? 1, they want to win that badly. 2, they think it's fun or funny. 3, they don't care what others think or about the game that they're playing. 4, they can't be bothered to learn the game's rules. Or 5, all of the above. Now notice that all of these things listed cannot be controlled by game mechanics in any sense. What I'm saying is that if someone wants to cheat, they will. This applies to literally any game you play. I have a friend that cheats at Monopoly whenever we play it together. That's just what happens. You can't prevent that. When people say it's too easy to cheat in the amalgam, I think what they mean to say is it's too hard to catch people cheating in the amalgam. And if you need to be on the lookout for people cheating during your game night, I'm sorry, but that's a you problem. What do you want me, the game creator, to do about people cheating at your table? I don't think putting a rule in the game that says something like, don't cheat, will prevent anyone from cheating. They're already choosing to ignore the rules, which are there for a reason. And there's an entire dumpster fire over there that sets the best example of why cheating should not be linked to game mechanics in any way. Seriously, I could talk about Monopoly Cheaters Edition for way longer. It's legitimately the worst game I've ever played. Let me know if you want a dedicated video of me ranting about how bad it is, because I will willingly do that. In summary, if people are cheating, I can't help you. Clarification time over. Let's add Uno Ultimate to the amalgam. I suppose the first logical step would be to explain how Uno Ultimate is played. I'm going to explain the whole thing this time because every detail will be important for how I add this one. Firstly, before the game even begins, each player must choose a character. Yeah, you're playing as a character in here. Already a revolutionary concept. This is a good time to mention there are two main versions of Uno Ultimate. The first is Uno Ultimate Marvel, which has 2 editions, or starter packs as I like to call them, along with several expansion packs that add a new character or two to the game. The second is Uno Ultimate DC, which to my knowledge is almost completely identical mechanically, except it uses DC characters, and the character stuff is different, and there's one new type of card which I'll get to later. This one is less expansive overall. What's funny about all of this is that to my knowledge, there is nothing stopping you from playing with both Marvel and DC characters in the same game, so this is kind of an indirect collaboration between the two comic giants. Good on Mattel for letting this happen because I'd hate to have all of this extra content lying around that can't be merged with its older brother for some random reason. When you start the game, you choose a Marvel or DC character, and that's the character you play as. We'll get more into characters later. In Uno Ultimate, there are actually 2 win conditions. One is to get rid of all of your cards, like normal Uno, but you can also win if you're the last player with cards in your character deck. What's a character deck? Be patient, this game is massive. Once you pick a character, the characters you don't use get put back in the box. Each character comes with a character card, a character deck, a corresponding enemy card set, and event cards. What are the— Hey! We get there when we get there. Next, everyone takes their enemy and event cards and combines them into one giant deck called the Danger Deck. It's full of danger, except not completely, as you'll see in a bit. Shuffle all of these cards and place the Danger Deck somewhere where everyone can reach it. Take your character card and place it in front of you so everyone knows who you're playing as. Then shuffle your character deck and place it face down next to your character card, and then draw 7 cards from your character deck. That is your starting hand. If it wasn't obvious already, the draw pile does not exist in this version. Instead, everyone has their own little personal draw pile. How cute, but also concerning for the Amalgam. More on that later. Anyway, there's a few new pieces of terminology present in Uno Ultimate, so let's run through them real quick. Draw. As you'd expect, you have to draw cards, but this time from your character deck. You add the designated number of cards to your hand, and then you lose your turn. Add. This is the same as draw, but you don't lose your turn. Nice. Burn. This is a fun one. If a card tells you to burn cards, you need to draw cards from your character deck, one at a time, and place them face up in your personal burn pile, which is a separate pile that goes next to your character deck. Some cards allow you to burn cards from your hand instead of your character deck, but that will only be done if one of these cards tells you to. Finally, recover, the opposite of burning. Take one card at a time from the top of your burn pile and place it face down at the bottom of your character deck. As I previously mentioned, if you run out of cards in your character deck, you lose. Because if you're the last player with cards in your character deck, you win. Also, if you run out of character deck cards, you are actually eliminated from the game. Forgot to mention that one earlier. In Uno Ultimate, there is no main draw pile, so the first player can play any card they like to start the discard pile and therefore the game. Your turn is divided into several sections. The first is the start of turn section. Everything that happens at the start of your turn happens. Specifically, if the card says, at the start of your turn, then that means it happens during this portion of your turn. Similar stuff can be said about a lot of these sections. Next is play. This is where you get to play Uno by playing a card or failing to play a card. After this is your battle section. If you have an enemy attacking you and you played a card that can defeat the enemy is defeated. Next is the danger section. If you play a card with the danger icon, you need to flip the top card of the danger deck and resolve its effects immediately. And finally, the end of turn section. Everything that happens at the end of your turn happens here. Alright, let's talk about that danger icon. It's on some cards. Quite a few, actually. If you play a card with this modifier type thing, you do the danger deck stuff during that portion of your turn like I just mentioned. That's it, it's pretty self-explanatory. Also, in your character deck, there are special wild cards that have special actions when played. You just gotta follow the instructions on the card, and each character gets several unique wild cards. Neat. Okay, now for the 2 types of cards that make up the danger deck. At least, there was only 2 until this game got expanded like crazy. Starting with enemy cards, when you draw one, they attack you. The card goes in front of your character card until they're defeated or replaced by a different enemy. But you should definitely try to defeat them, because apparently, replaced enemies are not defeated enemies. You defeat enemies by playing a specific card during the play portion of your turn. Each enemy has a special defeat condition on their card. Enemies can't be defeated on the turn they're drawn though, so you're stuck with them for at least a little. Each enemy also has up to 2 unique attacks. The first activates when you first draw them, and the second one activates on your turn if you don't defeat them. Just follow the instructions on each card to know how they bullied you. Next are the event cards, which just make things happen. When you draw one, follow the unique rules. Then you're done. These can be helpful or hurtful to you or anyone else, so there's actually quite a variety here. Defeated enemies, replaced enemies, and completed events all go in a danger discard pile next to the main danger deck. If the danger deck ever runs out, shuffle and replace. The second Marvel edition adds item cards to the danger deck as well. When you draw one of these, you equip them to your character. They just make you more powerful or give you some special action or something along those lines. But you can only have up to 3 of these equipped to your character at any given time. If you draw a 4th, you can choose to get rid of one that you already have equipped. Unequipped items also go in the danger discard pile. The DC version specifically added locations to the danger deck. These cards basically function as game rule adders. When someone draws one, it gets placed near the center so everyone can see it. They just make the game slightly easier or harder in various ways, and can only be destroyed by certain cards, or replaced by the next location card drawn. Once again, destroyed or replaced cards go into the danger discard pile. Now let's talk a little more about your special character card. This card has your character's name, portrait, and a special ability, which can be used up to once per turn unless something weird happens or you're special. Each ability is different. Some need to be triggered, for example. Can't wait for the tier lists of this game. One more thing, each copy of Uno Ultimate included 4 random foil cards in a blind bag. These cards function the same as the character cards and special character wild cards present in this game. They have different rarities as well, making the price of Uno Ultimate packs unbelievably stupid. They add absolutely nothing to the gameplay and only exist to make the game more desirable to collectors and to be shiny. Humans like the shiny thing, after all. Whew! Did you get all of that? It's okay if you didn't, because I'm going to be making some changes. That was just the basics as well. The specifics will be in the rule document once I poorly weld Uno Ultimate to the Amalgam. I'm sure you have a lot of questions on how I plan to make this stupid thing work, so here we go. The moment you've all been waiting for. I'm going to add this thing. Let's start with the glaring issue, the branding. The game is based off of Marvel and DC characters, and you play as those characters. And I don't have legal permission to use those characters. Uh-oh. Has it really come to this? Has Uno Ultimate truly forced my hand? Do I need to rebrand? Yes. I will start my rebranding journey here. If I ever want to sell this thing, I need to completely scrub it clean of all branding and rewrite all terminology. This just turned into the fabled rebranding video I promised forever ago. Woo! Some of you may have seen the community post I made a while back, briefly mentioning the rebrand I planned on doing. And while some of you came up with some awesome ideas for the rebrand's theme, like medieval warfare and Greek mythology, and a few others, I think I'll be sticking to my original idea. That doesn't mean those themes won't be included in a future project of mine, though. The new and rebranded theme of the game will be science, chemicals, labs, experiments, hazardous factories, and slimy stuff. This idea was conceived long before Uno Ultimate was considered, just because I really like the theme, but it fits even better now because superheroes and vats of chemicals go together nicer than bees and other bees. So when you order your copy of the Uno Amalgam, it will not be called that. It will be called something else. The word Uno will never be used. It won't even be used as the word to signal you only have one card left. All of the artwork and symbols will be made from scratch and redesigned to not look like the original Uno symbols, as you've probably seen. And all of the rules and symbols and modifiers and other various terminology will be renamed, rewritten, and recontextualized. This game will not feel like base Uno when it's done, I promise you. I won't go over the rebranded stuff until the end of this series when I make the ultimate guide on how to play the completed Amalgam. Jeez, that's gonna be like a 3 or 4 hour video, probably. So what's the story here? What's the lore? Well, this game will not have nearly as much lore or world building as Massacard's does, but here's the basic premise. You, as well as a bunch of other random characters, have found yourself in an epic battle in the local chemical factory. Something blows up in the chaos, resulting in everyone getting covered in strange chemical goop. Now it's a race to survive the hazardous material you're covered in, while also sabotaging the other people you're fighting. The cards in your hand representing the chemicals you're covered in. Less cards, less chemicals. Pretty neat, huh? Helps explain the two main win conditions of the game. Alright, let's get back on topic though. Characters. I need to come up with new and original characters to replace all of the Marvel and DC ones, including the ones from the various expansions, because I want to include just as many characters as a complete Uno Ultimate set would have. Let's see how many characters there are total. 4 plus 4 plus 4. That one was a 2-pack. That one is expensive. And 28 characters? What? Who would be crazy enough to come up with 28 original characters for a card game based on nonsense? Me, the guy who made 200 characters for his other game. Without further ado, allow me to introduce you to my 28 original characters with accompanying imagery that doesn't quite fit. I promise I'll be making art for these characters for the final version. First, we have Dr. Disaster. He's a classic mad scientist character with a robot arm. He's wicked smart, and he has been known to explore the multiverse. Full honesty, this is actually an old D&D character of mine. He's like a fusion of Rick Sanchez, Medic TF2, Dr. Peter Tesla, and Plants vs. Zombies scientist. He's also a character I've cosplayed as at least 4 times now. Next is Death Trap. He's a guy with a bear trap for a head, and he uses it to talk. He's got a dark origin story regarding where his head went, but he'll never tell you, mostly because nobody can understand his crackling metal language. Then we got Hazmaster. They're just a person with the best hazmat suit in the world. They invented it themselves. Unfortunately, while it does protect them from hazards, if it's opened or if they get stuck, they're kind of out of luck. Next is Sludge. Sludge is a being made entirely of green goop that can only keep themselves together by wearing a watertight spacesuit thing. They're also really hungry all the time, even though they kinda just place food inside their stomach instead of actually eating it. I mean, they don't have a stomach, so I don't know why they get hungry, and neither do they. This is another D&D character of mine. Yeah, I like the science goop theme, give me a break. Then there's Hybrid. She's a genetically engineered cat girl who has all of the powers of cat and girl. She can jump really high and claw your eyes out. Nice. Next is Miss Malleable. She has the power to stretch and shapeshift, but she's not very good at it yet because she just got her powers like a day or 2 ago, so she usually just ends up flopping around like a boneless human. Next is Crazed Taser. This guy strapped a car battery to his back and considers it his superpower. He uses electrified metal pipes to fight. Next is VacuumBot B39. This is a sentient vacuum cleaner that hates humans for making it into a vacuum. It will do everything in its ability to eradicate everyone. Then there's the Decomposer, just a zombie dude, but the virus that he's trying to spread is really weak and it never works when he bites someone. He also smells really bad. Then there's Maneater. She's a sentient plant that will chew you up. Watch out. Also, yes, I like Plants vs. Zombies. If Smash Up can add a plant and a zombie faction, I can add a plant and zombie character. Deal with it. Next is Kaboom. She likes bombs so much that she decided to take them to the most hazardous environment possible. Whoa, check this out. It's Eek Eek, the alien from planet... Original origin story alert, their planet blew up. Next is Johnny McGunn, stereotypical American war game protagonist with a heart of gold when it comes to himself. The Juggler is also here, because clowns tend to fall into vats of chemicals more frequently than any other profession. Rose Zaster is next, and she's the daughter of Dr. Disaster. She's a chill teen with way too much knowledge of technology under her belt, and she also doesn't care about a whole lot. This next one is a 2-in-1 character, Alex and Alex 2. Alex 2 is a gender-swapped clone of Alex, and together they act exactly the same as they would if there was only one of them. Oh yeah, this next guy is just called Legs. He has so many legs that it's actually more of a burden. Then there's the Rat King. They're actually a pile of rats that attempt to take a human shape by crawling over each other. Their leader wears a little crown, it's really cute. Someone forgot to keep tabs on Indestructible Baby. That baby is indestructible. Turbo Nerd is great with a computer and knowledgeable on many topics, but none of them help him in his day job. Lord Vortex is a guy who creates giant vortexes that suck stuff up and cause general mayhem. The vortexes themselves are less weather-related and more, spontaneous. Then there's Anti-Void, who can make portals and hover ominously. His hat is really cool, and I think his hands are made of spikes or something. While we're talking about basically magic, let's not forget the Maskmagician, who is a magician with a secret identity. He doesn't have any actual superpowers, though. Next is Forklift Man. He's forklift certified. Borderline overpowered, I know. Next is Elixir. She's a chemist that uses chemicals as everything. She uses some of them as a tasty beverage, and others as a jetpack. Professor Armageddon is actually an evil professor if you couldn't guess, and she actually has a robotic endoskeleton like the Terminator. Subject 81 is a mantis that was enlarged by a growth ray and then surgically given half of a human brain. Still very much a mantis in the grand scheme of things. And finally, we have Mutation Man, who's just a guy until he drinks some of his special sauce and gains a random assortment of body mutations that may or may not help him in the current situation. Gah! That was a lot of work. So yeah, 28 character cards will be added to the game. Each character card will get one of the abilities the Marvel or DC characters have. The abilities themselves don't really have much to do with the character they're a part of, so I'll just be putting them wherever I think they fit best. Now here's a big question. How do I plan to handle the whole personal draw pile character deck situation? Well, there are tons of reasons to not include this feature at all, honestly, so here's what I got. There are about 47 cards in each character deck. That would mean in a game of 16 players, you'd need at least 752 physical cards. I'm not saying we won't eventually reach that number of cards in the final Amalgam, but that's quite excessive for only one edition. And we're only talking about the character deck right now. On top of that though, almost all of the cards in each character deck are normal number cards and basic colored special cards, meaning that those cards would likely need to be doubled due to there being 8 colors now. So at least 1,504 cards. Yee, that's a bit excessive. At this point, it kind of seems like the character decks may be too big, especially in the future because we're nowhere close to done with this project. Now, I understand that a lot of that can be simplified down using the cards already present in the game, and it likely wouldn't be quite that extreme. But the main problem I have with this character deck thing is that all of these crazy wild cards and new special cards from other Uno versions I've been adding would not be able to be divided evenly and fairly amongst players. Unless, of course, I wanted to have 16 copies of every symbol in the game. Ouch, no. Also, this would be such a hassle to clean up afterwards. I can't imagine sorting a character deck after a game like this. Also, adding character decks would completely invalidate any cards that mess with the draw pile, so I don't want that. All of that being said, I think it's best that character decks sit this one out, so we're still keeping the one massive draw pile. Nice. Just because character decks are out doesn't mean that the cards present in them are out. In normal Uno Ultimate, each character has a set of unique wild cards with special effects, and I want all of these things in the game to make characters in general more worthwhile. Here's my plan. On the reverse side of each character card, I'm going to include a list of all of their unique wildcard abilities. They'll be labeled 1 throughout however many different abilities they have. Then I'm going to include a new modifier on a bunch of existing wildcards, the Ultimate Modifier, as I'm calling it. This modifier will have different versions for each number listed on your character card. Now, when you play a card with this modifier, you get to do the corresponding action from your character card. Some wildcards just got a lot stronger. As for the terminology, add and draw both still mean the same thing. but Burn and Recover gotta be reworked since the character deck is gone now. This is something that'll need to be balanced carefully and individually amongst each card, so I don't plan on going over everything I plan to do. Basically, I plan to replace Burn and Recover with similar but fitting various mechanics depending on the situation, and this goes for character card abilities, ultimate wildcard modifier abilities, enemy, event, location, and item cards. Never fear though, as every single one of these unique things will be represented in some way in the final product. There's also a pretty good chance Burn and Recover will be implemented in a different way during balancing. Speaking of the Danger deck, let's get into that now. Firstly, every single unique Danger deck card mechanic will be included. Mechanical duplicates will not be. And you'll be able to have all of them shuffled in there at once. If there's any reason to not have all of them included at once, I will alter that mechanic slightly, because separating the Danger deck each time sounds like such a chore. So now there are 4 regular discard piles, 1 draw pile, 1 customizable wildcard pile, 1 danger pile, and an accompanying discard pile. This is getting absurd, in a good way. Let's start with the enemy card type. Do I plan to make unique characters and art to replace all enemies across every version and add-on of Uno Ultimate? Honestly, probably not, but I'll see what happens when I get there. I'd rather prioritize the character art. If I'm motivated enough, I will, but there are seriously like over 80 of these. Mechanically, they'll all be there though, and I'll alter them where necessary. Don't get me wrong, I have no problem coming up with 80 unique characters, but it's the art itself that would make it really challenging. I'm just one dude, you know? Next is events. These ones will be a lot easier for me because they don't have much to them. All of them will be included and altered where necessary. Duplicates will be excluded, and they may all receive their own symbol just like in Uno Ultimate, but those symbols aren't the most necessary in my opinion. Sometimes a cleaner card is just a better card. Next is items. These ones will have to be balanced a bit, but I intend to include all of them, and they'll function just like they did in regular Uno Ultimate, except for the changes that I make. Locations will have the same deal, pretty much unchanged, except everything will be rebranded and altered where necessary. I'm fully aware that every card type I've talked about can do wildly different things depending on the character deck they come from. Please trust me when I say I will be very careful when implementing and possibly altering all cards from this game. That being said, not every character or mechanic will be created equal, just like in regular Uno Ultimate, I guess. But I'll try to balance them as much as I can. You may be wondering how many cards are going to be in the Danger deck. Well, probably like 170 or so. I don't know the exact number because I haven't removed the duplicates or actually made the cards yet, so that's more of an estimate, but just assume 170. Yeah, even without adding character decks into the game, this edition is still easily the most expensive inclusion yet. Forgive me for not going through each card individually, but I don't want to make a video that long when you can find out for yourself by buying a copy when I start selling this thing. Of course, if you already are an expert in Uno Ultimate, you know exactly what's going on in the Danger deck. 170-ish more cards are being added to the Amalgam. Whoop whoop! In order to draw from the Danger deck, you need to have the Danger icon. I've transformed it into a modifier, and I'm going to place it basically all over the place. It's a really common symbol in Uno Ultimate, so it will be here as well. I may even use a randomizer to place the Danger modifiers, honestly. That's how random it feels. Nah, I'm just too lazy to list where each one goes. Trust me though, they're plentiful. I believe that only leaves us with one more topic to cover when it comes to Uno Ultimate. Those stupid blind bag rare cards. Mattel really wants to steal money from you with these things, but I don't. So, they just won't be included. They don't do anything different from their base game counterparts mechanically, and I don't want to set up any physical game component to be randomized in the box of the Amalgam, because that would increase the price by a much larger margin than the Danger deck. For real. However, I am aware that this is in fact a feature. So here's my plan. When the Amalgam eventually gets its own request form, I'll set up a second request form with an expansion pack of cards at the same time. The expansion will include all 28 character cards, now with premium holographic detailing and a gold glint edge to every card. They also won't be plastic, but instead will be produced on M32 linen cardstock, because that's the most high quality option I could possibly produce. And they'll be double finished. If you didn't figure it out already, these cards would be bought purely to flex on people. You will not need these cards at all, so we'll see if that gets enough requests, but I'm totally fine if it doesn't. I just know some people will want the shiny card. Well, I think that about covers Uno Ultimate. Obviously, I didn't get into much of the specifics because I don't feel like recording all day. But trust me, it's a good thing I didn't list every single thing about every single character card, enemy card, event card, location card, item card, blah blah blah. If you already know, you already know, and if you don't, it'll be a nice fun surprise when you first play. When it comes to the rebrand, I'll still be talking about everything in the context of Uno in the future, so you all know what I'm talking about. But when I make the final how to play video and produce the final game and rules and junk, everything will have a new coat of paint. I bet you're wondering what the new game will be called because I deliberately didn't tell you earlier. Or, if not, then you're definitely wondering now. Well, I've been bouncing around between a few names for a while now. My first thought was to call this thing Amalgam, or The Amalgam, and a lot of you suggested that name in the comments as well. I do like the idea, but I don't even want the title to imply that this is a combination of games, even though it is, lol. My next thought would be to name it Sludge, just because this was the original idea for the name back when I first created the project. In the end, I prefer Sludge be the name of a character than that of the whole game. So here's the name of the game, for real. This one was suggested multiple times by the community, and I fell in love with the name when I heard it. I will be calling this game Chemicards. Ooh, so good. Not only is it clever and related to the game's theme, but it also follows the same name scheme as my other game, Massicards, which you should totally check out, by the way. It's so good. So yeah, when you request and order this game, it will be called Chemicards. I'll continue to call it the Amalgam until that point. Woo, big reveal, yay. That'll do it for this episode of the Uno Amalgam. If you think this project is something you want to see more of, please subscribe and like the video if you in fact liked the video. This video took way more effort than usual to produce. I had to make 28 characters. Surely that amount of effort is worth something. Also, sorry if you were expecting more Uno versions out of this video. I promise to make up for that in the next one. Speaking of the next one, I'll see you there. Bye!